In Vampire in Brooklyn, when the vampire Max disguises himself as a preacher and starts declaring that evil is necessary, the lines between comedy and horror and holiness blur.
It's funny, yes, but it's also uncomfortable because Max's sermon exposes the quiet bargains people make with morality every day. He's preaching America's gospel of justified sin.
The vampire Max doesn't seduce the people with blood. He seduces them with a partial truth wrapped in absurdity.
And that's what makes the evil is good scene the funniest yet most terrifying moment in Vampire in Brooklyn.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber.
We're going to spoil this movie for you.
That is right. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to hop off the call. But we also want to give a special thanks to the following co-executive producers who helped to make this video happen via our October Horror Movie Festival. Kelvin Pollard, King James, Marlon Bellamy, Regis Hale, R. Jones, Miss Oh So Awesome, Antoinette, Rashawn B., and Veronica. So let's talk about a little bit of background on Vampire in Brooklyn. It was actually Eddie Murphy's last R-rated role for many years, and it was his only collaboration with the horror legend Wes Craven, famous from A Nightmare on Elm Street and other stuff. In fact, today we have another video dropping that we will link in the description, The People Under the Stairs, and that is a Wes Craven horror film as well. So though it was marketed as a horror comedy, Vampire in Brooklyn explores this serious undercurrents, like diasporic identity, Christian hypocrisy, and the struggle between assimilation and authenticity. And so the movie was initially kind of panned by critics, but it did later gain this cult status among Black audiences who appreciated its blend of Gothic aesthetics, humor, and commentary on respectability politics in Black spaces, especially churches. So for the cast, we have Eddie Murphy, who plays the vampire Maximilian. He also plays a couple other characters sort of in the Coming to America kind of style, where he has, prosthetics and makeup and whatnot to make him look completely different. He plays the preacher, and he also plays another character named Guido in here. Then we have Angela Bassett playing Rita, who is a detective. We have Alan Payne playing Justice, a detective, and Kadeem Hardison plays Julius Jones, and then John Witherspoon, rest in peace, plays Silas Green. But let's talk about our new merch right quick. Think for yourself and question everything and break free from the so-called truths that they want you to accept. The Axiom Amnesia collection is here. Bold logo t-shirts and hoodies designed for thinkers like you who refuse to settle for assumptions. Stand out and make a statement and show the world you don't just go along, you actually think critically. Plus, it's a great way to support the channel and keep the work that we do going. Get yours today. The link's in the description, or you can visit us anytime at axiom.app. So when the film opens, we hear a voiceover, and it is actually Maximilian, Eddie Murphy's character, telling us kind of the story of how he came to be. And so basically the whole deal is that there is one known offspring that was born in a foreign land, that being the United States, and is currently in Brooklyn. And Eddie Murphy's character, Max, has to find her because she's actually half vampire, and he needs her to be able to mate with her because all of the other vampires have been killed, right? And so that's what we're taking to John Witherspoon and Kadeem Hardison's character. John Witherspoon is Silas, and Kadeem Hardison is playing Julius, right? And they are uncle and nephew, and they work at the docks. And so they're sitting there, passing the times or whatever at the docks. And then at this port, when a ship just crashes into the port. So when they go onto the ship to investigate, Silas is giving us the comedy that we expect from John Witherspoon, right? And
yeah, it was like a leave the world behind kind of thing.
Yes. And so Julius has more of self-preservation, and he's like, I'm not going on no ship looking around and doing all of that, right? So he leaves Silas to investigate alone. And so when Silas boards the ship, he sees all of these dead bodies, and he encounters this huge wolf that he looks and sees morph like in a shadow into a man. So, like, mind you, this is the real world, and you're seeing these supernatural things take place, and he's not feeling it. So meanwhile, Julius is in trouble with some guys over some money who chase him down. And, you know, these guys seem like they're mob affiliated, and they have him cornered in the alley. And so they're about to get with him. And then Max approaches them, and the mob guys basically fire shots and hit Max, and he regenerates and snatches out one of their hearts. And then Julius is running away, but Max catches him. And so Max tells Julius, he's like, you know, you're a liar and a thief and a cheat, and I saw you working at the docks. And so Julius continues to try to escape, but Max drops some blood on his tongue and then basically makes him turn into his ghoul, like his gopher, you know, the one who watches his casket while he sleeps at night and stuff like that, because he needs an assistant. So Max tells Julius, hey, I need you to help me find this half vampire woman. And I got to find her before the next full moon. So meanwhile, we see Angela Bassett's character, that's Rita the detective, and Alan Payne's character, Justice, who's her partner. They are going to investigate this ship that's crashed into the port with the dead bodies. And then in the process of all this discussion, we find out that Rita's mother had died 3 months ago. The supervisor is concerned about Rita's ability to do her job now that she's back at work and whatnot. And Silas is talking to Justice about the wolf that he saw. And of course, you know, ain't nobody believe you saw this big wolf and whatnot. But again, he's bringing the comedy. Meanwhile, Max and Julius, they come back to the ship while the investigation is going on, but they are trying to retrieve Max's coffin from inside the ship. So they need to kind of create a diversion or whatever. Meanwhile, Rita's inside the ship. She sees the coffin, and when she opens it, she sees herself inside the coffin. So we're going to see that Rita gets these premonitions or seeing herself and all of that visions and whatnot throughout this film. So Max sees Rita, and he realizes she's the one that he's looking for. So what a coincidence. In all of Brooklyn, just the very one you're looking for happens to be the detective, one of the detectives investigating the ship that you know, ran ashore on.
Yeah, but he got all these superpowers. He can't just get the casket or the coffin.
I know he can't just make it, you know, but anyway. So then Rita runs, but then she also is chasing Max at the same time, and he gets away. And then she tries to show Justice where the coffin was, but by the time she turns around, the coffin is gone. So I guess he somehow swiftly got that coffin up out of there. But nobody believes her because they already think she's crazy. They think she's had like a mental breakdown and stuff after her mother and whatnot. So meanwhile, they find Julius's ear as they're investigating this scene because Julius' body parts are falling off as he transitions into a ghoul. So Max and Julius set up at Julius's place to try to find Rita. And so meanwhile, Rita is questioning her own sanity. She gets freaked out when she's walking home to her apartment, and she sees visions of herself as a vampire. And then she wakes up from her dream. We also find out that her mother was a professor of supernatural studies, right? So at work, Rita questions whether something is supernatural is happening in the city because, you know, you got these deaths and stuff. We have the mob guys that were found killed in the alley. We have all these bodies turning up at the dock from that ship that just crashed into the dock. And at the same time, Julius is lurking around at the police station, trying to find Rita, trying to hear what all is going on. And he is just looking like he is the Walking Dead, and which is actually made to be comedic in this film. So Silas notices that Julius is basically turning into a ghoul or whatever, and, you know, is making comments that are, you know, comedy related. And so Julius is also Max's driver, and they began plotting on Rita. And Rita talks about her father and says that he was murdered on the island because she's from the Caribbean. He was murdered on the island before she was born, and her mother was put into an institution where she stayed until she died. And so Rita was raised in foster care. Then we get this character, Dr. Zico, right? He's the expert who basically tells Rita and Justice, you know, what was found on the boat. Because you know how it is. They find these artifacts, these inscriptions and whatever. They can't read them. They got to go to the expert or whatever. So that's who Dr. Zico is. And he tells them what they found on the boat. And he lets them know, hey, look, there's a vampire. And he tells Rita to be sure to keep her faith. Right. Meanwhile, and it's actually at a club where they meet this guy, you know, and so while they're in there talking to Dr. Zico, a snake sees Rita and tries to come toward her, but who also is approaching Rita? Another snake, and that would be Maximilian, Eddie Murphy's character as the vampire. And he approaches her, and then he rescues her from the snake because she doesn't see the snake. This just when the snake is about to strike, he captures the snake, and then they wind up talking. And you know, then he's like, oh, he set her free in a dream. He's talking about how he could set her free and all of these things because he's trying to seduce her. And he's like, yeah, I just need to dance with you. And just when they're about to dance, who pops up but Justice, who's interrupting them like, hey, we got to make these moves on the investigation. And she immediately, so when she's under his spell, she's like looking at him and everything and all in it. But when she snaps out of it, she's just like, I never dance with you. You know, she just turns on him or whatever. So then they move on with the investigation. And so this is really comedy and horror mixed together. So Justice and Rita are back at Rita's place and they're fighting because she's trying to explain like how she can, you know, essentially what amounts to psychic abilities, how she can see things and how she can feel things and her intuition or whatever. And Rita also has this roommate named Nikki. And Nikki sees Justice is like, oh, you brought a man home and da-da-da. So when she finds out, you know, when she sees him, she immediately just starts throwing herself at
Nikki
Justice.
A hoe.
Basically, she was just like, oh, hey, you know, and she's being all extra flirtatious with him. And so he leaves the apartment. She goes down. She done followed this man outside. She goes down and she's like, well, you know, can I help you in any other way? He like, man, get out of my face. Basically is what he does. He goes on and he leaves. But while also, we find out that Rita paints things that she sees in her nightmare. So she's made different paintings. There's these weird paintings on the wall in their house and whatever. And so while Nikki is downstairs after she had tried to get with Justice and he done screeched off in his car, then who approaches but Max? And she's like, hey, would you like to come up for a night? Because, you know, she just inviting men up to the house. Of course he says yes because he's trying to get in the apartment so he can see Rita. And she goes and she smashes Max, right? And Rita is hearing all of the goings on and the moans.
Who does that with a roommate?
Huh?
Who does that with a roommate?
I mean, look, y'all go to the comments. Did y'all ever have a roommate? Did y'all roommate used to be in there getting it on? Are you a woman or are you a guy?
It's
Did
not
the guys
about
used to
getting
do
it
that?
on. It's like they're making noise.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Getting it on loud and being disturbing, right? Because they were being very loud. Getting busy, because that would be the language used back then or almost back then. So Rita is upset because she thinks that that's Justice in there with Nikki, right? She has no idea that it's really Max, and it's loud. They talking nasty and dirty. So, you know, she does kind of like Justice a little bit. And so she's salty that here her roommate didn't just thrown herself at him, and it seems like he caught it. So Rita starts painting in the middle of the night, and then we hear Nikki scream. And the next morning, Rita discovers Nikki's room totally empty, and she sees a note that's left by Rita. But we also see in the vision, like we see what really happens. So while Rita doesn't know what really happens, we do, because we know Max done killed that girl. So Max then wrote this note in Rita's handwriting. Basically,
Nikki?
I'm sorry, Max wrote the note in Nikki's handwriting, right? And he's explaining, Nikki's like, oh, I found a man and I'm leaving and da-da-da. Like, who really does that? Why would that even be believable? Somebody's there last night and then they're just not there the next morning. But okay. So Rita Max, is explaining that part of the seduction is to take everything away from Rita. So to take all of her support system, the people who she would turn to, so that she only has him to turn to, right? And so that's what he's really trying to do. So he had to get rid of the roommate and all of that for this to be falling into place. And in the next scene, we actually have the scene that we're going to talk about in great detail. And that is when Rita goes to church.
A church. She had to go to a church.
So Rita is going to church and Max is still plotting on her, right?
No, Julius, there are much more interesting ways to our heart.
And one of the things that Max says is that one of the ways to her heart could either be through her fears or her faith.
Through her fears, for instance, or through her faith.
He sees her at church, so now he's like, I got to, figure out how to weasel my way in and, just determine how I can manipulate her.
This is one of those parallels with Coming to America, right? Because, you have find a woman at church, right?
Yeah,
But you also have in Vampire in Brooklyn, he had to go to Brooklyn to find his woman because it's the only place she could be. And Coming to America, he had to go find her in Queens.
Yes. And so, in addition to that, I thought about the Nutty Professor a little bit because of him just playing Eddie Murphy playing all of those different characters, and this kind of had a little bit of feel of that to it as well.
Yes, I'm Preacher Paulie, and if you've been misbehaving, Preacher Paulie's here for saving.
And so, Max kills the preacher.
I'm beyond saving.
And then morphs into him so he can impersonate the preacher, because obviously Rita is going to tell her preacher everything. So he does this, and then he sees Rita. She comes up. She's like, let me talk to him and whatever. So she starts explaining about her visions and everything like that. And he's like, yeah.
Ain't feeling and tossing.
Yes, and I just felt that I needed to talk to someone that I could trust.
And then one of the congregation members or the church people come and they're like, oh, Pastor, come on in. It's time for the sermon to start.
Paulie, Preacher Paulie, come on now. Everybody's waiting.
Now, mind you, that Max is not going to be welcome up in no church like that. And so, but the guy pulls him inside, and why does his wig start smoking at this moment? I mean, it's just funny. And he knows it.
And then he says, God damn.
God
damn!
And they're like, what did he say? What did he say? Everybody turns around to see what's going on. And so after that, then he's just like, oh man, I got to figure out a way to get these people outside, because I cannot be up in this church. So that's when he's like, God damns those who, and then he's like, let's just take this outside. It was a beautiful night, whatever. And makes an excuse not to have to be in the church.
Come on, let's do the sermon on the lawn. Come on, sister. God damn.
Because we know that he couldn't have stood 30 seconds in that church. He was about to explode.
Want us to cover your favorite movie ASAP? A one-time contribution of just $50 or more to Axiom Amnesia gets you a deep dive on demand, a 30-minute discussion on any film you choose.
It's easy. Step 1, send $50 via our website, axiom.app, where you can pay via card, Apple Pay, or you can pay directly via Cash App at $Axiom Amnesia. See the links below. Step 2, tell us your movie, email, the name you want to appear on screen, and what kind of deep dive you want. General, a specific character, a particular aspect of the film, etc. Step 3, watch your deep dive on demand with your name listed as executive producer.
Lock in your deep dive on demand today and hurry. Spots are limited.
This offer is not valid for filmmakers or distributors. Subject to availability and terms apply.
Sisters, we come here time after time and we talk about the same old.
So then we see him attempt a sermon, because it's like, obviously Max is not a preacher. So how is he going to impersonate this preacher, and what will he preach about on the church steps? And so he starts and he's like, every time we come here, we talk about the same old. I don't want to talk about the same old.
Well, I don't want to talk about Jesus this evening.
And he says this every story has two sides. And then he goes with his word, duality.
Story is not one-sided. A story has a duality.
And I always thought that was so funny. For whatever reason, him saying duality would just make me laugh so hard in this scene. And then he talks about necessary evil.
You may hear the phrase necessary evil, and you say to yourself, that don't even make no sense to me.
And how, evil is necessary because without bad, there is no good, and so on and so forth.
Without bad, there is no good.
And that therefore, evil must be good because it's necessary.
If it's necessary, evil must be good.
Yeah.
And, hey, and he gives examples even. If it's a sunny day, then what's a sunny day, and so on.
If every day is a sunny day, well, then what's a sunny day?
And then he got the people to parrot it.
Right. So these are basically, logical games that he's doing, right? Rhetoric. He's being a good rhetorician, right? But so not too long ago, I seen somebody post on Facebook. They were talking about, arguing online with people who couldn't pass an LSAT. But these are the kind of things that are questions on the LSAT. And, being able to identify basically flawed arguments and, these logical reasoning flaws.
Right.
So that's just kind of what he did there, because a lot of times, like, these things, of course, you have this strong position that evil isn't good, so you will reject it. But in other instances, it's not that simple to catch some of these flaws, right?
Well,
and if you're following this person and they're telling you these things, then the flock actually falls in line with it, because he's saying these things that you have already agreed to be the case, like without bad, there's no good, and those sorts of things, and evil is necessary.
And also, you brought up the flock and following. Well, the thing is that they're taking advantage of the trust that the people have in them and manipulating that trust, right? That's one of the things that can happen with leaders. And, and this is an illustration of just how easy it is, because the people do not have their guard up against their preacher, because he's the one who is the shepherd for the flock, and it should be guiding them to all things that are good and holy and wonderful. And so he even tells them, he says, you will say it with me, evil is good. And then, people question it at first. You hear the crowd kind of go, well, I guess it must be then, because he said it so.
That's what I say. It must be. Evil must be good.
So there are some people, I think, when these types of things are presented, who are like, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not being logical about anything. This is my leader, and I follow my leader. And if the leader said it, it must be right. Right? That's how some people are.
And then with religion as well, you can't logic your way. Right? That's part of it. You have to give up logic in that same sort of way.
Yeah, or
because
accept
faith,
it.
Right.
Right. And accepting that there are going to be things you don't understand, accepting that you don't have infinite wisdom, all of those things. And unfortunately, those are the very things that can be used against you in these types of discussions. So he, right in front of them, this well-meaning congregation is able to get them to say that evil is good because evil is necessary.
Let me hear y'all say it. Evil is good. That's right. Evil is good.
But also this discussion about what is good and bad, because, from a religious perspective, and specifically these are Christians we're talking about here, then they're looking at, like, think about all the times in the Bible it talks about this, right? The good fruit from the bad fruit, and know a tree by its fruits, etc. And the division between good and bad. And if you can't discern what's happening, right there in front of you, based on the kind of rules that you're supposed to be operating on, then that presents a huge problem. And you can see how it's easy for people the whole congregation basically, to fall off of a cliff. And if you hear some stories of things that have happened in churches, you realize that the worship of the leadership, and specifically usually the main leader, like the pastor or the whoever, is what kind of, and I'm using worship in the truest sense of the word. I don't think overtly they think they're worshiping, but they're following to the extent, they've almost exalted this person to the place of a deity, and that this person shouldn't be questioned. And this is how you wind up with people just following along and parroting and all of that stuff. So, yeah, so I think that is like the scary commentary that goes with it. And even though this is a movie, I'm sure that some of you have stories or have seen situations where it's like this, and not even just about religion. We see it with politics too, right? Because right now we're in a very politically charged season in our country. And we see people who are trying to have logical debates, but they're clearly illogical. People who can appeal to folks who don't have, and I'm not saying it as, as an insult. I'm saying, but they don't have the skill set to really be able to think as logically as others, and you have people who are taking advantage of that. So we see it every day. So anyway, Max goes on and he decides that now he's going to begin to attack or expose people in the church in the process of, this whole evil is good, so on and so forth.
Take Brother Brown, for instance.
So he continues on and he talks about how the deacon was down with a $2 hoe.
Brother Brown was down on Bushwick Avenue last night with a $2 hoe.
I don't know why this whole thing was just so funny to me. But then his wife, sees and she starts beating him up with the purse and whatnot. And he's like, I didn't know she was no hoe.
I didn't know she was no hoe.
So he didn't deny being with a woman out there. He just says, I didn't know she was no hoe or whatever. And Max is using this to illustrate how evil and good go hand in hand, because he's like, that's evil to tell your wife you going to see your mama and then you out here with this hoe.
When you tell your wife, I'm gonna go see mama, then you go down on Bushwick Avenue and get you a $2 hoe.
He's like, but, he had a good time with the hoe,
That's evil. But Brother Brown had a good time with that $2 hoe.
And again, the logic is not logicking.
You can push a $2 hoe to the line. She don't have no limits.
But yet, to somebody who doesn't understand, hey, it does sound like, okay.
Evil and good, they walk hand in hand. Evil is as evil does.
And then that's when Justice shows up.
What are you doing here?
The captain wants us to check something out.
And Max does mind tricks on Rita to make her confront him about sleeping with Nikki.
What's wrong with you?
Remember Nikki?
You fucked her, didn't you?
And he denies it.
I mean, I never touched that girl.
Oh, yeah?
And then, Justice becomes the center of attention in this crowd.
Don't be ashamed because you went out and got your little ass.
Because, she's like, that's her lipstick on your collar. And how you even recognize? How do you know what somebody's lipstick looks like? Come on.
Then you should change your shirts more often. That's a lipstick on your collar.
That's just, but I guess that's just cliche and, easy to throw in there. So, this exchange, though, is one where we realize, like, Max has powers over he can make it thunder. He's got mind control over the people and stuff like that. So he has, quite the supernatural set of powers.
Evil's good and ass is good. And if you get you a piece of evil ass, whoo!
And I'm always interested because with these vampire movies, there are different, like a vampire can have different powers. Sometimes they can have the mind power. Sometimes they can fly, disappear, and do all these other things. And then sometimes they're more limited. So I guess it just depends on the creativity of the person.
Right.
Who's
And that's one of the
writing
discussions we had when we talked about Sinners, right? Because they were, this idea of what is a vampire, what a vampire can do. And everybody's always talking about, oh, well, whatever folklore they have accepted or whichever set of rules they have accepted for vampires, right? This vampire was a wolf.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's called a werewolf.
And I'm like, is he a werewolf? What is he? Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, but this is hands down my favorite scene in the film, but it's also funny. And to get back to the discussion piece on it, it's like showing you how people who are right there in the church, people who we look at as being the holiest and the best of people, often have temptation. They often fail, fall, all of these other things. And
remember the woman who just got fired on the live stream?
No. What?
Yes, you do. It was 4 women in the back, and the woman came up, and I think it was the preacher's wife or whatever.
Oh,
she
yeah, in the church. She got fired right there on the spot. She was one of the singers.
Yeah, and everybody was just cheering it on because one supposed leader was just like, yeah, it's a good thing that I'm, being transparent and calling people out, having accountability when you're really trying to embarrass somebody.
Right. And I can't help but feel like one of the themes here is that I guess evil is tricky, right? Because when you try to call it out, a lot of times you will be targeted and be labeled as the one who's bad, right? The idea, and we'll talk about it more in detail in the video that we did that just came out on the people under the stairs. But, there's this notion of, hear no evil, speak no evil, and say no evil, all that, right? But yet it's because you can't say bad things about the people who are doing bad things. Does that sound familiar? Especially politically right now. You can't say something that is true but considered bad about a person who is doing evil and bad things. And this is exactly, kind of an illustration of a similar, concept, but that we can apply to everyday life. I just think that we have to be careful about the pedestals that we put people on. It's just as simple as that. It doesn't matter what leader they are. I mean, because and especially because this is dealing with the Black church, but especially with the church, right? Because I mean, every time we look up, there's another scandal. Somebody's got a DUI. Somebody's got a child that they're estranged from. Somebody's cussing a child out. Somebody was caught on, on a tape saying things they shouldn't say. And somebody else was doing this and somebody was hiding that. Somebody was, doing violations of people and children and what, like there's always some type of controversy. And in the end, are these people really any different than any other group of people? Probably not, right? The only difference is just their faith and the religion that they choose to follow. That's really it. But as far as the fallibility of their human condition, like that's the same. And if we look at it differently, then, I think we're bound to be disappointed, with faith in men. So, yeah, so that's the best scene. So let's continue on with what happens in the movie. So then after that, we see they go to Justice said that he spent the night at the police station, and then Rita and Justice talk. And then, they realize they like each other. He likes her, and, they leave together to continue the investigation. So then we see Eddie Murphy playing Guido, this character who gets beat up by the mob. And then Rita and Justice go to see the mob bosses to talk to them about the guys that had been found in the alley earlier in the movie that Max had killed. And so, Eddie Murphy is playing Guido, and he robs the place. He takes Rita hostage, but then she intervenes and she saves herself and beats him up and whatever. And then Rita and Justice take Guido into the precinct. Now, at this point, though, it's not really Guido. It's Max as Guido, because this is the second time Max has done that. So Guido is there. He's arrested, and Justice is there, and so is Rita. And Justice is mad, and he tells Rita, like, you always trying to be the hero. You could have been hurt or whatever. And so when Max as Guido sees this, then he, strikes up, tries to keep them, because he wants to isolate Rita. So he's trying to keep her from getting any closer to Justice, her partner. And so, he basically accuses Justice of being with Nikki, and then that makes Rita mad, and it works, and it creates this diversion. So also Max can get out of there. And, then Rita is almost hit by a taxi on the street after that, and Max rescues her. Max asks her out on a date. She accepts and is like, I'm gonna send a car in an hour. So meanwhile, Justice, he goes to talk to Rita, and then he sees her all dressed up for the date and is like, oh, you look good and everything. Then when the limo pulls up and everything like that, she just pulls off, and Justice is sad because now he's liking her as more than just his partner, and here she is going on a date with another guy. So Rita arrives at Max's place, and he has an original Van Gogh painting, and Max is asking Rita all about her dreams and, getting his Mac on and stuff. And meanwhile, Justice is still just investigating out there, and Max gets Rita to actually dance with him, and he snatches the cross off of her neck. And remember, Dr. Zico had told her, hey, keep your faith close. And of course, faith is not just found in this, cross on her neck, but it symbolizes something, right? And so Max is playing mind games with her, and, it's like, say you want it, say yes, and all this. And then he bites her neck. So the next day, Justice is still investigating. He's looking for Julius. And Silas says that he saw Rita come over to Max's house. And then, of course, Silas, played by John Witherspoon, is making you laugh because he's basically talking about how Max had banged out Rita and, how she left that morning. Justice is upset about that, but then Justice gets a call about a homicide investigation, and it turns out that it's Nikki, right, Rita's roommate, and her body is like hanging up, and it looks just like this picture, the painting that Rita made a few nights ago. So he goes to find Rita. Rita been sleeping all day because she got bitten, so now she's starting to take on vampire tendencies and whatever. And then Justice tells Rita that Nikki is dead, and she's all grieving and crying. And then Justice is like, everything you believed in is real. So now Justice is starting to believe that some of this is supernatural. It's not just regular stuff going on. And so then Rita starts kissing Justice on his neck, and while he's consoling her, and he says that line, he's just like, hey, you know what you're doing? Rita knew what she was doing. So now, let me just say this. Angela Bassett, I'm going to have to look up the ages, but Angela Bassett always felt a little older than everybody else here. And is that really true? Like older than Alan Payne and maybe, I don't know, mismatched a little bit. How old is Angela Bassett?
She's about 65, 67.
67. Okay. And then how old is Alan Payne?
10 years younger than her.
Okay, so then I'm right. Not to say, hey, look, I ain't no issue with that. I'm just saying that, like, when you look at it on film, there are certain things. We were just talking about that because we had just watched Why Do Fools Fall in Love? And that has Lorenz Tate in it. And his love interests of Halle Berry and Layla Rochon, like, I felt like he was way younger than them, you know, but maybe so was Frankie Lyman, the character that he, you know, the man, the real life person, and as compared with his wives in the film. So I don't know, but, you know, that was just something that I picked up on. But all right, so she's 67. No big deal, but that was something I noticed. Did y'all notice that too before? Go to the comments and let us know. For those of you who don't know, you should visit axiom.app, and you'll be able to look at all of the recent videos across all of our channels. And I'm putting that on the screen right now just so y'all can see it and see what it looks like, because there are a ton of videos that are over there. And also, I think that there are at least about 100 exclusive videos that are available for our Patreon members and our YouTube members. So, you know, if you're interested in more of our content, as I've seen many of you binge watching, be sure to check those things out. Then they continue kissing, and she starts getting rough. She's aggressive with Justice and acting all crazy and stuff. We see her fangs come out. And then when she sees herself in the mirror with the fangs out, she freaks out. She runs outside, and then she runs all the way to Max's place. And he's like, welcome home. And she's like, what have you done to me or whatever? And Rita accuses Max of all the recent murders. And Max says that he gifted Rita with eternal life. And this is interesting because obviously just having had that scene, the religious scene, then you can see how he's playing with that and how, you know, his evil is mimicking
it's
that which
basically
is
what
good.
everyone claims that, you know, the Christians, right, claim that that is the thing. Oh, or that's the prize, eternal life. But I think it's, you know, it's one of those flawed arguments. It's simplified, right? Because it's eternal life under certain conditions.
Right, right. So then we have, you know, Rita is upset. She runs away, but Max finds her. And then Max is telling her some stuff. So Max is like, look, your father sent me to you. And he tells Rita that she's the daughter of a vampire. And so this is the first time she's really hearing all of this. And Max says that the humans had killed her father and that he sacrificed himself so that the mother could survive, the pregnant mother could survive, and that is what drove her mother insane and why she wound up living in the institution for the rest of her life. So then we see Dr. Zako, and he's in his place. He's chanting. Justice comes in to get help, like, hey, you know, tells him what's going on with Rita. And Zako says that he knew Rita's mother, and, you know, because Rita's mother was this, you know, researcher or whatever. And so meanwhile, Max is teaching Rita to feed. And so when Max goes in for the kill on somebody, Rita runs away. She refuses to feed. She can't do it. But if she doesn't feed, she's going to die. And so Zako tells Justice that they got to rescue Rita before she feeds and loses her humanity. So it's not just getting bit by the vampire that is what is going to change her forever. It is that she has to actually partake in feeding from, you know, other humans. And I'm assuming that also means an actual kill. But, you know, it's ambiguous in the film. So Rita is praying and asking for help, but Max carries her away, and Max tells Rita that she got to feed or she's going to die. Then next thing we know, Silas shows up. That's John Witherspoon's character. And just when Rita is about to feed on Silas, Justice shows up and stops her. And then Justice and Max face off, and Zako stabs Max in the stomach. And then Max goes away with Rita. She wakes up and whatever. And so at the end of the day, ultimately, Rita chooses to stab Max through the heart. She kills him. And then Max died, implodes, and explodes at the same time. And his ring is left behind. So then Rita and Justice kiss. They're all happily ever after. So Julius, understanding what happened to, you know, because Julius, that's the ghoul, that's Kadeem Hardison's character. He understands what happens and whatever. So he has the limo that he's been driving Max around, and he like, I ain't no more sitting in the back, you know, I'm gonna be in the back seat from now on. So he starts talking mess and whatever. Then the ring is like lodged in the sunroof. And when John Witherspoon's character Silas opens the sunroof, the ring falls down, and Julius puts the ring on, and when he does, he's regenerated. Like, he's restored. He looks normal. You know, he looks very suave and debonair now. And so he's like, oh, it's a new vampire in Brooklyn. So, but we never got a sequel or anything.
So a ghoul can become a vampire, and
yes, well, that's what
that's
was said in the beginning, right? Because that's toward the beginning of the film. That's what Max tells him. He's like, and maybe someday you'll even become a vampire. So, but I don't think his intention was that. I think a ghoul was gonna be a ghoul. He was just gonna rot and have
that whole thing was just.
Well, you gotta have somebody who you have that power over, who's gonna watch your coffin and whatever.
It's the hierarchy
during the daytime.
of the undead.
Yeah, the hierarchy of the undead. That's a good way to put it. So yeah, so that's what happens at the end of the movie. So, you know, we see that Silas is driving the limo, and Julius is now the new vampire, and that's the way it ends. But we never got any type of sequel. And I think that at the end we felt like it might happen, because now we want to see the story. But you know what else it reminded me of? It reminded me of a movie that somebody had us do on Deep Dive on Demand, and it was Death by Temptation.
Yeah.
And similar thing with Kadeem Hardison in it, similar type of stuff. Except in there, he wasn't a vampire. He was a incubus, I guess, a succubus, whatever. He was some type of spirit and whatever toward the end. But I mean, same type of thing. The ending is almost identical, actually. And I think that film came out before Vampire in Brooklyn. So, but yeah, did that remind y'all of that? But maybe what we do is put together a playlist of good stuff y'all can be watching. That because this is coming out on Halloween of 2025, but you know, you guys may have other films that we've covered that are the horror films that you might be interested in watching. But yeah, so that's what happened in Vampire in Brooklyn, and I'm glad we looked at that particular scene to kind of break it down, because that truly is the scene that stands out the most to me. And did you know that Wes Craven had done this movie?
No, I hadn't remembered that.
Yeah, I hadn't either. So I thought that was just, you know, kind of wild or whatever. But yeah.
So where is this film in, I don't know, the hierarchy of horror films or in black horror films, right? Because I don't think we really had much. I guess you could say Blackula. This is kind of one of those comedy horrors too. At the same time, you know, this was at a time we didn't have black movies. And
right,
we especially
that many.
Didn't have horrors.
Because some that we've covered, like we covered Bones, of course, Tales from the Hood. We have multiple videos on that.
You have, you know, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
You have The People Under the Stairs.
Right, which just came out today.
Yeah.
And we have that linked in the description. But yeah, we don't have a whole lot. I mean, because we didn't have a lot back then. But of course, we did wind up with some more modern ones, you know, like of course Get Out and Nope. Beloved, some people call a horror film. We did cover Beloved as well, and we'll link that in the description. And did I mention? Yeah, I said Get Out, Nope.
Yeah. You know, back in the day, you had JD's Revenge and things like that, but I don't think we really before, you know, the 2000s and I guess even more recent times.
Candyman, that we covered that recently. You know,
I don't know if it's necessarily black, but you know that could be debated. Crazy as Hell, I think, is a comedy, but yeah.
But we have.
I mean, a horror.
A horror
could be a horror.
And then we have some that I feel like are more recent, where we got into this. What do they call that? Afro surrealism.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's the movies like Bad Hair and you know other films and TV shows that are kind of horror-ish. You know, that center on black themes and stories. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we have horror films that have had black actors in them, but I wouldn't necessarily call them black horror films.
Yeah, like Night of the Living Dead. That's
right.
A real significant black theme.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that maybe we'll discuss one day.
Yeah. But yeah, so we just didn't have those at the time, that many of them. But I'm grateful that we have a lot more now. I hope that we can have even more in the future. It's funny, some movies that people actually consider, like some people would say like Eve's Bayou is even a horror on some level, and I'm like, why do you say that's a horror?
Or Juice.
Yeah. Oh no, don't even say that. Juice is a horror film. Yeah, okay, everything is a horror film.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So go to the comments and tell us, what is your favorite Black horror film? I'd be interested in knowing what that is for people. But I want to take a moment to thank the co-executive producers of this video. We appreciate so much that you helped to make this video possible. Kelvin Pollard, King James, Marlon Bellamy, Regis Hale, R. Jones, Miss Oh So Awesome, Antoinette, Rashawn B., and Veronica.
If you made it this far, type my ghoul in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now. And also, be sure to visit axiom.app, where you'll find all of our recent videos in one place so that you can watch them here on YouTube, and you can also find our merch there.